Hello, and welcome to OFN's webinar on our Clean Community Investment Accelerator Program, or CCIA program. We are so excited to launch the pilot round of OFN's CCIA program. The intent of this webinar is to walk through our request for applications and give you an overview of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Program, or the GGRF program. In the next slide, you'll see the intent of this program and this webinar. We are really going to walk through and give you a key overview of our request for application, or RFA, for this CCIA pilot round. We'll describe the baseline information around GGRF and CCIA and summarize key important dates and give you other information. On the next slide, you'll see the table of contents. So the question we always get, is this webinar going to be available? Are these slides available? The answer is yes. They are available on our application resources page on the website. So you can listen to me and my esteemed colleagues, Nicole Sonderigger and Jessel Amin, who will walk through this presentation. We will have 11 sections, which are aligned with the request for application document, which is available in detail on OFN's website. On the next slide, you're going to see our disclaimer. The lawyers made me do it. The information here provided in this document is a courtesy. You all have legal obligations that are found in the applicable laws and regulations and written agreements with OFN. The applicants are solely responsible for conducting your own analysis of the CCIA program eligibility, and the information should not be construed as legal advice or a substitute for conducting your own eligibility and compliance analysis. Okay, we're done with the dry stuff. Now we're really fun stuff. Let's go back and level set the history of GGRF and CCIA. This is a total of a $27 billion program dedicated to driving outcomes and improve in low wealth communities, or LIDAC communities, which is our new favorite acronym. CCIA specifically is a $6 billion program of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. The intent of this program is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, deliver benefits of the greenhouse gas reductions in low wealth communities, mobilize private capital, and to create key outcomes of lowering energy costs, creating healthier economies, improving job quality, and economic revitalization. Under CCIA, the goal is to create the infrastructure for success for community lenders. And we do that through passing through subawards that provide technical assistance to a network of lenders. OFN is very proud that we received $2.3 billion under this program, and we expect to pass through approximately $2 billion to mission-driven community lenders in our network. On the next slide, we talk about why we use the word mission-driven community lenders. It is so important that we ground this in communities. OFN is a mission-driven organization, and we want to transform the market for clean energy finance in low-wealth communities. We also want to serve as a resource hub for community lenders to provide capital, technical assistance, and market-building support. On the next slide, we're going to get to the exciting stuff, really, I promise, we are launching this program, and over the next year, we're going to test, learn, build, scale, and support you in your journey. On October 10th, we opened our CCIA pilot round for capitalization funding and TA subawards and the nascent climate lender training program. You can find all of that information and more on our website. Early in 25, we will start the nascent climate lender training program and announce the CEF and TA subawards for the pilot round. And throughout 25, we will open up full and open funding application rounds, convene communities for learning practices, and build capacity and technical support services. OFN's approach is member forward, which you'll see on the next slide. We really designed this program to provide that guidance and support for members, by members, informed by members. We want to demystify this program. And in order to do that, we are having webinars like this. We will have checklists, tools, and templates, office hours, and help desk that will walk you through this application process. On the next slide, we really want to remind you of our approach. We are designing this as an inclusive approach. We want to meet our members, mission-driven community lenders, where they are at. We design this for all climate lenders, regardless of where you're at, whether you have not yet issued one climate loan or you're deep in this market. We want to meet you where you're at, regardless of your asset size, to grow your capacity for climate lending. We also designed our application to be straightforward. We really want this application to be, while it's a complicated program, we are demystifying it and we are asking for information that you should already have. And we really don't think it necessarily needs outside consultants to complete the application itself. In total, over this program, an entire CCI program, OFN has a target to make more than 300 awards to mission-driven community lenders and provide a pathway, again, for less experienced climate lenders and climate lenders at any part of their journey to develop their necessary skills. I'm going to hand this over now to Nicole, and she's going to walk you through the RFA.
Thank you, Amber. So yes, as Amber said, I'm going to start by explaining what the RFA, the request for applications, is, and important information that you need to know to apply for this program. So to receive funding from OFN's CCIA program, applicants will go through a competitive review process. The RFA provides details on our CCIA pilot round, which includes eligibility requirements, allowable uses of funding, application submission and evaluation information, and award requirements. The RFA also has a list of helpful terms, acronyms, definitions, and links. And it's really a way of providing a standard, clear, and transparent process to select CCIA subrecipients. And so on the next slide, I want to point out some key program dates. It's important to know that the CCIA application is structured as a two-part application, and we will talk a little bit more later in the presentation what that looks like. But right now, I want to call attention to the Part 1 application deadline, which is on November 7th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. After Part 1, we will move to Part 2 in late November, and then we will close those applications in January of next year. By Q1 of next year, we will be announcing our award recipients with everyone. And the one other thing I want to share is the last day for questions for Part 1, which is November 6th at noon Eastern. And that's so that we have enough time to answer your questions before the deadline. Next slide. And so we're really excited to share that we've actually developed an online portal for applications. So you'll be able to go to our website and access a portal from a company called Submittable, which we've developed. And so you'll be able to create a new account on our landing page and enter your unique entity identifier to access the portal. From there, you will be able to directly answer application questions and upload supporting documentation in the portal. We've developed some helpful resources to guide you through this process. So the first is the application guidance. That one walks you through all of the questions and helps provide some additional detail. And then the second is the application platform user guidance. So that one is really focused on the IT side of things. So how do I log in? How do I add collaborators? Where do I get IT support? And how do I navigate this platform? Next slide. And so these are some images of what you'll see. So over on the left is a picture of what our application portal looks like. And if you look at the bottom of the page, you'll see that continue button. So you would click on that, and then you would be taken to a screen that looks like what's on the right. So you would click that sign up, create your account, and then you'll be in the portal and ready to go. Next slide. So now that you know when and where to apply, I want to dive into the details of this funding opportunity. And I want to start with our eligibility criteria. First and foremost, you need to be an OFN member already to be able to participate in this specific pilot round. In addition, you also need to have a UEI from SAM.gov. You must be a nonprofit, and if you're a for-profit, then you must be a certified CDFI. You must be an OFN member in good standing, which means that you are current on your dues obligations to OFN and that you've complied with our annual membership survey requirements and the corresponding deadlines. You must also complete our nascent climate lender self-assessment and identify as a non-nascent climate lender. And this is found directly in the application, so you will do it there. You don't need to look for any external resources. And then finally, and this is just for our pilot round, you must have submitted a clean financing pipeline form, a letter of support, or a letter of interest for our CCIA program back in 2023. And again, I want to reiterate that this will not be an eligibility criterion after this pilot round. Next slide. And so I want to come back to that requirement to assess as a non-nascent climate lender. And so although nascent climate lenders cannot apply for funding in this round, we intend to provide training, resources, and hands-on support to enable such lenders to really grow their climate lending capacity and be able to come back and apply in future rounds. And so one of the resources that we have available now is our Nascent Climate Lender Training Program. We are also accepting applications now, and those close on November 7th. So same dates as for the funding round. And if you'd like to learn more about this training, you can visit our website. Next slide. And so CCIA funding can be used for costs related to capitalization funding for financial assistance for CCIA eligible projects, and also for costs for technical assistance. So capitalization funding is in the form of a permanently restricted grant for financial assistance. Financial assistance can include loans and other financial products, participant support costs, loan purchases, and subawards to financial intermediaries. Technical assistance subawards can include things like procuring training, market analysis, technical support, developing new financial products, supporting pre-development activities and technical feasibility studies, and things of that nature. And because this funding is from a federal source, any costs that are charged to the TA subaward also have to meet the requirements for allowability under 2 CFR Part 200. Next slide. And so I mentioned that capitalization funding is for financial assistance to CCIA eligible projects. I know that is a mouthful, but basically what it means is that funding from this program needs to support projects that are eligible. And so eligible projects are ones that meet the criteria in this slide. So first of all, they need to be in one of 3 categories. They need to be distributed generation or storage, a net zero emissions buildings, or zero emissions transportation. The project must also have climate and social impacts, and those mean assisting members of a low-income and disadvantaged community, or a LIDAC, reducing or avoiding greenhouse gas emissions, reducing or avoiding emissions of at least one other air pollutant, using only commercial technologies, and delivering at least one additional benefit. Finally, projects must also meet a few financing requirements. So the first is the financing is additional, and this means that the project may not have been financed if it wasn't for the CCIA funding. And second, projects must also mobilize private capital. And so we've developed several resources to help you understand these criteria. So the first in the RFA in Appendix 9.6, you'll find the definitions for these criteria. We also have a project eligibility summary. And so this one is a good sort of high-level overview, a document that you can use to help orient yourself. And then finally, we highly encourage applicants to take a look at our project eligibility tool. This one contains detailed examples and definitions and walks you through a checklist to make sure that you're hitting all of those eligibility criteria. Next slide. And so how much funding can you get? In general, applicants can get a maximum of 10 million in capitalization funding and 1 million in technical assistance funding. However, your award size will vary depending on your CLIMAT and CAMEL rating. So CLIMAT is a way of measuring a lender's climate readiness to lend into climate projects. And CAMEL is a financial risk rating. And so you can see in this table the different levels of awards. And we'll talk briefly a little bit more about what climate is later in the presentation. And I want to flag that in the CCIA pilot round, OFN will not make awards to organizations that it rates as acceptable minus or below, and also will not make any exception awards. Next slide. And so we anticipate making 20 capitalization and TA funding subawards in this pilot round. And the award sizes will range between 2 million and 10 million for capitalization funding and up to 1 million in TA subawards. And our program is really designed for applicants to be able to come back, grow their climate lending readiness, and apply for more funding across various rounds. So it's not meant to be a one and done, but rather a process by which you grow and can access more funding. And so if you've been awarded funding from OFN, you will need to deploy the funding within 3 years of the closing date of your agreement with OFN. Applicants will then be subject to a closeout agreement, which stipulates ongoing redeployment, reporting, and other requirements. Next slide. And so applicants will need to comply with various important requirements. And so if you receive funding from OFN from the CCIA program, you will be receiving federal funds from the EPA. And so that means that you will need to comply with various federal rules and regulations. The terms and conditions of federal awards flow down to subrecipients unless there's a specific section that is explicitly noted to not apply. The RFA includes a non-exhaustive list of applicable federal rules and regulations. There are a few national policy requirements that applicants should be aware of, and in particular that we want to highlight. And these include Build America, Buy America, Davis-Bacon and related acts, consumer protection, housing affordability, and civil rights requirements, the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisitions Policies Act, the National Historic Preservation Act, and federal single audit requirements. And we encourage applicants to take a look at EPA's guidance to further understand these. And so now I'll pass it over to Jessel to tell us more about the application structure.
Great, thank you, Nicole. Hello, everyone. In this next section, I will cover an overview of the application structure, outline the information requested in the application, share detail about the evaluation criteria and scoring, talk through the selection process, and end with directions on how to access resources to aid you in a successful application journey. So let's move to the next slide. The application structure is a two-part application. In part one, applicants will verify their identity and eligibility, complete the nascent climate lender self-assessment, and provide information about the institution's CCIA funding deployment strategy, climate financing track record and capacity, and financial performance. OFN evaluates Part 1 applications and invites a selection of up to 20 applicants to complete Part 2. In Part 2, applicants answer questions and provide documents to enable OFN to evaluate their climate finance readiness and financial strength. Let's move to the next slide. For the CCIA pilot round, OFN conducts a comprehensive review of all applications and selects applicants based on the following criteria: the strength of their CF strategy and CCIA eligible project pipeline, their track record lending to CCIA eligible project categories, and their level of project private capital mobilization, amongst other factors. OFN expects prioritized application characteristics to change with each funding round to ensure that progress is being made toward the broader program objectives of CCIA. There will be future opportunities to apply for funding in early 2025 if your institution is not selected for funding in the pilot round. So let's walk through the entire process together. On the next slide, you will see a description of the information that you will need to complete the eligibility form. The eligibility screen should take you less than 10 minutes to complete, and so I encourage you to jump right in and get this step complete. In this section, you will need your unique identity identifier, your UEI. You have to obtain your UEI from SAM.gov prior to applying to the OFN CCIA program. You don't need to go through the full registration process on SAM.gov in order to receive the UEI, but I want you to note that OFN can't assist in the process of setting up the UEI. So if you don't have this set up already, we encourage you to get started on that right away. You can visit SAM.gov for more instructions on setting this up. Next, you will need to enter your employer identification number, your EEIN. Specifically, your EIN will be cross-referenced against the OFN database to confirm your eligibility to apply. We'll use this information to verify your membership status, confirm whether you are qualified to apply for this program based on your status as a nonprofit or a CDFI, and whether your institution has submitted a clean financing pipeline form, a letter of interest, or a letter of support for the OFN CCIA program in 2023. Next, you'll be prompted to complete a 4-question yes or no self-assessment to determine whether you are a nascent climate lender or not. Then finally, you'll need to attest to the truthfulness of your submissions. Shortly after you submit the information, you'll receive an email to access the remainder of pilot application part 1, or an email that indicates which eligibility criteria was not met. If you pass the eligibility screen, you'll be invited to complete part 1. In the next slide, I will outline the information needed to successfully complete this part of the application. Note that when you open part 1 of the application in the portal, you'll be able to preview all of the questions. Additionally, we have provided several resources in addition to the RFA on OFN's website. You will find a Word document version of the application. This can be used for drafting and for collaboration purposes, but this document should not be uploaded or sent to OFN in lieu of responses that need to be embedded within the portal and submitted by the deadline. There's also an application guidance document, which provides step-by-step instructions, additional context, and helpful tips to help you answer each question in the application. You will also find an application checklist, which contains all the material that you'll need to complete the application. And finally, you will also find an application portal guidance document, which provides sort of assistance in navigating the technology platform. I highly recommend that you look at all of these materials prior to applying. So let's walk through some of this material. First, you'll need to, when you enter the portal, one of the first questions will ask you to specify the amount of CF and TA subaward that your institution is applying for, and describe the strategies for deployment of each of these. You'll need to indicate if you plan to apply for a loan from OFN, and also if you have intended to or have already applied for capital under NCIF. Next, we will collect information about your institution's historical track record of financing CCIA eligible projects and ask you to provide information about your forecasted CCIA eligible pipeline. You'll be asked to upload a template of that pipeline, and we provided a helpful template on the OFN website to help you complete this task. All of this information is required for the CCIA pilot round, but however, OFN will revisit the information required for future funding rounds. Next, you'll be asked to provide information about your strategy to mobilize private capital. Please consult the private capital mobilization overview on our website to understand this definition. And it also has a really great resource for sort of laying out some great examples on how this will be calculated. Next, you'll be asked to put in some key financial information for your institution. This includes things like your total asset, your net assets. Then there's like a form that will calculate various other ratios. You'll also be asked to provide information about the performance of your institution's loan portfolio and climate financing portfolio. Next, you'll be asked to provide information and reports related to your institution's capacity to report climate, portfolio, and financial data. This information includes climate impact metrics, your most recent fiscal year-end audit report, and interim financial statements. Then you'll be asked to provide acknowledgement of the federal and CCIA program requirements. You'll have to attest that your institution has an understanding of the GGRF legislation and certain federal compliance requirements that you will need to comply with the program. Then there'll be an additional information section where we will solicit information on the EPA regions you plan to deploy in. And finally, you'll be asked to acknowledge and attest to the truthfulness of the application. And then you'll hit the submit button. Note that you can have multiple collaborators in the platform, but only the account owner can submit the application. For more information around how to add collaborators and how to transfer ownership of the account, please visit the submittable user guide. So now let's talk about how you will be evaluated. Let's move to the next slide. This slide outlines the maximum number of points available for each of the evaluation criteria. There are also 2 pass or fail categories. This information can be found in the RFA document and aligns with the information I outlined that will be requested in the application. Let's move to the next slide. The focus of this session has really been around part 1 of the application, but I'd like to preview part 2 of the application just for your comprehensive understanding of what's to come. OFN will select up to 20 applicants to complete the second part of the CCIA pilot round application. Applicants in part 2 will be evaluated using climate and CAMEL. The climate matrix is designed to assess the applicant's readiness for climate lending. Within this framework, OFN scores your institution's climate finance strategy, your pipeline quality and availability of climate products, your capacity to execute the deployment plan, your track record of climate financing. OFN also scores your internal technical capacity, including your ability to assess feasibility, risk, and cost, and your ability to offer customer-facing TA for climate projects, and your compliance and impact tracking and reporting capabilities. This information is outlined in the appendix of the RFA in section 9.4. The next portion of this references the CAMEL matrix. The CAMEL matrix assesses the applicant's institutional strength and history. CAMEL provides a score for capital, asset quality and performance, management and governance, earnings, and liquidity. This section is based on OFN's financing guidelines. For more information on this, please see Appendix 9.5 in the RFA. I want to note a really important point here. OFN members who are current borrowers need only submit a limited amount of new information, in particular for the CAMEL assessment. This is our effort to help this process to not be so burdensome for existing borrowers. So let's talk through the selection process on the next slide. As noted in section 3.0 of the RFA, applicants are notified by OFN in late November if they have been invited to participate in part 2 of the application. OFN expects to announce the final selection of approved applicants under the CCIA pilot round in Q1 of 2025. Applicants not selected to participate in the CCIA pilot round are still eligible to apply to the first full and open funding opportunity in 2025. Applicants selected for funding in the CCIA pilot program may also reapply for additional funds in future rounds. So let's get into some of the fun stuff. On the next section, I'm going to talk about subaward administration and policy requirements. Please note that this represents a list that is not exhaustive of all of the requirements of the CCIA program. Additional requirements from the EPA or OFN may apply and will be included in the subaward terms and conditions and amendments. Changes to government requirements may also impact subaward administration requirements. This section is provided as a courtesy to help familiarize applicants with the selected requirements. So OFN will take steps to verify that subrecipients can comply with the required rules and national policy requirements applied prior to completing the closing process. Subrecipients must also have policies, procedures, and internal controls in place to safeguard their awarded funds from waste, abuse, and non-compliant action. Subrecipients must also comply with all interim and final reporting requirements as outlined in the terms and conditions for the subaward. All subrecipients will receive CF subawards will earn program income. Recipients will be required to retain and reuse program income for the additional capital deployment. Subrecipients may apply a federally negotiated indirect cost rate of 10%. OFN reserves the right to take any remedial action if a subrecipient fails to achieve performance goals. Note that we provide this information to help inform you of the process and set some expectations, but additional guidance will be forthcoming in the coming weeks and months. So let's move to the next and final slide. We want you to know that OFN is here to help. We have endeavored through this journey to really put our members first and aim to demystify this process. Start today by visiting climate.ofn.org. Visit our CCIA How to Apply page, which has a wealth of application resources. Check our regularly updated program FAQs to see if your question has already been answered. And if you can't find the answer there, reach out to the OFN help desk. Additionally, we will be hosting a series of office hours over the next few weeks to help you in your application process. This slide outlines the dates. For all the questions, email ggrf@ofn.org and give us a couple of days to get back to you. I want to leave you with this message. We will be by your step every side of the way as you participate in this journey with us. We are so excited to be on this journey with you and take this gigantic leap forward. Thank you for joining us on this webinar recording, and we look forward to our continued engagement.